All right, 161. We got a special guest here. Maya is here from Tulsa. She went to yesterday's rally, and she's going to tell us what the Trump rally was like from the inside.
She is our presidential correspondent.
Thank you. Well, thank you guys for having me back on again. That's really cool of you, and I do appreciate it. So basically, my sister said, if there's a Trump rally, we're going to go. And so we went. And we didn't know if we were going to get in. We didn't know if it was, we had no intention of sleeping outside, though. We're prissy that way. There were some people that did camp out. I think one of the first things that I would note is, that the night before, so let's see, Thursday night, there were people camped out, and the mayor came out with a curfew, correct? So a lot of people were chased away, basically, because when you tell, Republicans / Trump supporters that there's a curfew, they just say, oh, we have to leave? Okay, well, I guess we will leave. And so they did. And so a lot of people didn't want to come back and spend another day / or an entire day in line only to be chased away at night. So some people, I think, didn't do that. But then basically we came back in the morning, on Saturday morning, we showed up. There were, I would say, well, at least, because I know there was more than one exit. So from the exit that we were coming in from, there were, I would say, like a couple, 3,000 people maybe that I saw, because we were actually there really early. It was, as you would expect, a really quiet, respectful crowd. Every single police or any uniformed law enforcement, whoever they happened to be, because there were people in full tactical gear, there were private security, there were police, everything. Everybody got a wave and a thank you and, great you guys and everything. At 8 a.m., somebody led the crowd in a Pledge of Allegiance. There were people doing like prayer things. For the most part, it was just people just hanging out. Now, I know that Rick wants to know whether or not people were wearing masks.
I saw pictures. I want to know whether you and your sister were wearing masks.
No, I was not. I was not. If somebody was next to me that was wearing a mask, and I would cover my face if they wanted. If I asked them, I said, "Are you okay with me?" And they would say no, and I would be like, "All right, I'm fine." Like, I mean, most people didn't care. And people who wanted to wear a mask, a lot of people brought their own, so they had face coverings. A lot of people did not. As we were entering through the original, I think at 10 a.m., they were beginning to let people in towards where the arena was. So before you even entered anything, there was a temperature check. They were handing out masks, so everybody had a mask. It's not, if you chose to wear it or not, that's up to you. Everybody had a mask. They were giving them away.
Did you see anybody set off the thermometer? Did anybody come in high that you saw?
Not that I saw. When we were entering, I saw quite a few. It was all of us just like as we were pouring in. And they actually had like the little zigzag that you go through to get to where the thing is. They had like the 6 feet distancing. So you had the option to distance if you wanted to. Like I said, we did take temperatures. So I don't know. I didn't see anybody set off to the side saying, "Oh no, you have a temperature." Let's see. Then, as you got through there, of course, then there was like the metal detector, full-on TSA search, and they didn't even like. We were afraid there might be rain, so the only thing I had in my hand was an umbrella, and they're like, "Nope, can't bring an umbrella." Okay, fine, no umbrella. I had a scarf tied around my ponytail that had like an American flag kind of a scarf. And they told me to not use that as a banner. No banners, no signs, no nothing like you. And they even told us we can't bring water. We're like, what? But then basically they had a ton of volunteers with a ton of free water. And they weren't. It's not like they were charging for them. No, they were just handing them out. And they kept passing them through the crowd. They kept saying, anybody needs water. Anybody needs water. They just kept sending. I saw one or maybe two, like what you might call medical emergencies. Somebody like wasn't feeling well, was sitting on the ground, and so right away they got all the various, like from EMT, they had fires, they had all the security, everybody. They brought them out. They took care of that person, and of course the people handling that person, they always wear gloves and masks and stuff. So, but the crowd was, like I said, they were singing, they were chanting. There was like a stage set up outside, um, and people were speaking. There was music. There was a lot of just various like entertainment type stuff. I mean, again, you had the option of distancing. People didn't. Um, I know I've heard of some quote unquote agitators, like the people who were outside trying to create trouble. The one lady that they kept showing on the news, the one who
Yeah.
was wearing the can't breathe thing. The thing is, if you watch that video, it's actually kind of funny because I was always looking for myself in the crowd because if she walked right past where we were, I was almost wondering because we were more like towards the center. So, but she was walking, as you can see her walking past and coming back and kind of stopping to like show off her shirt, like here you can read my shirt, and everybody's looking at her like, what? We all agree like that. I mean, if you're looking for that to be the agitator, like for this crowd to get upset at you, they won't because
What did it
everybody
say?
agrees with
What did the shirt say?
it said I
I,
can't breathe. It had like a silhouette of the
oh,
guy on the ground.
oh.
Oh, so what you're saying is that you think her assumption would be that
That she's
that
going to
she,
trigger people.
yeah, but what you're saying is that everybody in the frickin' world agrees that you shouldn't kneel on a guy's neck.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. Like everybody, whether they're, I mean, left, right, and center, Trump supporter, young, old, doesn't matter what race, what age, what gender, doesn't matter. Like everybody agrees that was atrocious, horrific. The guy should be punished, etc. So, I mean, like if that was her intention, that was kind of silly because that wasn't going to trigger anybody. It was like this should be a unifying moment that yeah, we all agree. And again, like you could so totally see that she's not afraid of anyone, and nobody even like making an
Okay. Yeah.
attempt towards her. So I mean, so that was fine. And then it was kind of overcast and it was kind of actually okay. But then the heat and the humidity started to get to people. So rather than opening, though originally they said they're going to open the doors at 3, by 2 o'clock because the sun at that point actually came out and it was beginning to be really hot and uncomfortable. So they actually opened the doors at like 2. So so we start piling into the arena, which like it's air conditioned. You have nice clean bathrooms, and again like they kept telling people, you know, there's tons of sanitizers everywhere. They were handing out. By the way, that's the other thing. They were, along with water, they were handing out bottles of sanitizer, so you could sanitize. And
Were
so
people were people sanitizing?
absolutely.
Okay.
And the funny
I
thing is,
like to sanitize. When I go out, if there's sanitizer, I'll just squirt wherever. But like, there's more recent research that says that surfaces aren't as
correct.
contagious as.
Correct.
But
And I think, yeah, it wasn't so much for surfaces, it was for your own hands because you're touching like maybe, you know, whatever it is. Excuse me. Sorry, got something in my throat. So the so they were handing out sanitizer, and like I said, outside and also and as we were walking in, when they were handing out the masks, they were handing out the sanitizer, and also inside the arena. But those they had small little sanitizer bottles with "Make America Great Again" on them, which I thought was adorable. but anyway, sanitizer, and they had a ton of them out there, and so, and again, inside the arena, they had all the various, what do you call, like YouTube influencers and so forth, right? So if you know who David Harris Jr. is, I took a picture with him. That was super cool. What's his name? Mike, the pillow guy. He was there.
did you get a picture with Mike the Pella guy?
My sister did. Yes, I have a
Now,
sister.
do you use his pillows, by the way?
I have not because I haven't bought any, but I think if as soon as when I'm ready to buy a new one, I'm going there.
I'm wondering, you know, like, is there really revolutionary pillow technology? It seems like I don't know.
Pretty straightforward technology. I hear you. I'm not sure what the deal is with particular pillow, but if I ever use it, I will be sure to let you know.
Okay.
Let's see. So, like I said, so we had a few hours to kill. Of course, the concession stands were open, and so people were more comfortable and relaxed. And then they were handing out, of course, the signs that you see inside the arena, the Make America Great Again signs. They were just handing those out, and they had quite a few representatives of what they call Black Voices for Trump. So there were several of those people around, and that was really cool because they were just again, there's another guy. His name is Terrence Williams, and
I see him on Twitter. Yeah.
right, he's a young black guy, and he was just partying it up. You could see pictures of that he posted on his Twitter, and he's just like having a ball. He's just like he's a really goofball kind of a guy. But there was, like I said, several things, and then around 5 p.m. they started they started with the Pledge of Allegiance. There was and the different people were leading. I don't remember everybody's name. They brought out a lady who sang that we sang the anthem with. There was another lady that came out that led a prayer, like maybe 5-10 minutes. And then, they had all the various, everybody, from even Eric Trump was there. They had a few senators that were there, but they didn't actually speak. And they had a few. Mira, am I forgetting anybody? I'm sorry, I just got to double check. Who am I forgetting? Everything. Anyway, so, and then of course, like that was like around 5 p.m. when they started the speeches. Yes, so the vice president spoke right before the president came out. Yeah, so it's funny.
What about you've been there for? What about food? You've been there for like by this point you've been there for like 10 hours.
Right. Yeah, we were pretty hungry. Well, because so because they didn't want us to bring a backpacks and whatever, so whatever snacks we had, we just went and left in the car. They had some food trucks in the area before you get into the arena while we were sitting outside. So there was some food truck stuff. And then in the arena, of course, there's concession stands and stuff like that, so you can get some food. But I mean, by the time we left there, we were pretty tired, pretty hungry because we were there for a full like 12, 13 hours, I guess, total. Because I guess we got there about 6:30, 7 a.m. And then but when Trump came on, he spoke from like just a little bit after 7. And I think he went all the way to like almost 9 o'clock, like 8:45, something like that. So it was quite a bit, quite a nice long speech. And yes, he did speak about the whole, that he gave that to the cadets, that speech that when he was tumbling, then he stumbled a little bit down the walkway when that happened.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of explained that he basically wanted to let the crowd know like what happened. Because people say like, oh, he said like, because I didn't like how I looked because I was kind of stooped like that, and yes, I've been up, for, standing on my feet for like whatever, 4 hours. And then they asked him, it's like, hey, Mr. President, would you like to salute each and every cadet? Because I did this 600 times, it's like, and it's hot and you're standing out in the sun. And because I had a nice suntan, which to say I had a nice sunburn. And so, being tired, being whatever. And then he was making a point about, I had slippery shoes on because, I had leather shoes on, and, the general is wearing nice rubber sole shoes, and I'm looking at this ramp, and it's, So, I mean, he basically kind of explained to the crowd what that was about.
The whole thing, you were pretty entertained by his speech, I assume, right?
Yes, he was being very kind of like, even though he was, I mean, some of the things he addressed were pretty serious and pretty important. He continuously mocked the fake news media. He kept like pointing at them because they were right across from him, like directly across, and he kept saying like, how the fake news media. It's like if I fall on my ass, he literally said, he goes, if I fall on my ass, that's gonna be the story. Like he's like, I cannot fall on my ass. So I grabbed the general's hand, whatever. But there's very
well, you're not old enough to remember this, but Lance will. That Gerald Ford may have lost the election. Right. Because versus Jimmy Carter in '76, because he was mocked for being physically clumsy.
Well, I do remember Chevy Chase doing that on Saturday Night Live.
Okay, yeah, and that was he was one of the better athletes of the past century to be president.
Right.
I mean, some of the previous centuries, like. Abraham Lincoln is in the Wrestling Hall of Fame. He was a great athlete. But anyway.
Right. Well, I think it's also important to note that he definitely didn't speak off of a teleprompter. And, there was very few O's and ums and this when we're talking about a guy who stood there for an hour and a half, easily, maybe an hour and 45 minutes, and just spoke off the cuff. And he stayed on topic. He didn't meander too much. made a point of mentioning, the police, rule of law, and pointing out that Seattle is turning into just, pardon my language, a crap show, basically. I don't know about comedic genius. I think if you look at his track record, more like he knows what is up. Like when he says, "Look, we can come in and we can fix it," and he literally said like under an hour. It's in a place where you allow us to bring in. He said, "I'm waiting for the governor to call me. If the governor wants to call me, I will come in and I will have it fixed in an hour." But when you're saying, no, I don't need your help, I got this. It's like, okay, we're just going to sit there and watch and see how that works out for you. And he said, like, if you, so it's not so much a comedic genius as it is just a political, he's politically savvy enough to know that if you think about it, 2 years ago, when he was talking about the speech that they constantly misuse and crop out the part where he said not the Nazis and not the neo-Nazis, not the nationalists, right? When he says the good people on both sides. And when he said in that speech, when he said, oh, what's next? If you're going to start with Robert E. Lee, then what about Jefferson? What about Washington? And here we are 2 years later. And who predicted it? Trump. Because he can tell politically which way this is going, and I think, again, like I know he's a very polarizing figure. I know that people either love him or hate him. There's no like very little lukewarm, very little in between. But if you look at the fact that, 3.5 years in office while constantly being hounded, and he's done more, especially if you're talking about, the Black community or the minority community in general, he's done more than 5 presidents before him combined.
From, what specifically? Money
for the HBCU, the first act step.
The first, I'm sorry, what? The first?
First step, is that the prison reform?
Okay.
The Prison Reform Act, that's like I said, the HBCU funding, the
well, tell our audience. Tell our audience what the HBCU is.
Oh, historically Black colleges and universities, right? So it's historically Black colleges and universities that he made sure that they have funding, that they don't go away, they don't go under. And
more than any other president.
Pardon me?
More than any other president.
Correct. And I think like that lady that he pardoned even before the first act step came in, that lady that he pardoned, something, her last name is Johnson, I think, I mean, if you look at the fact that, Obama didn't pardon these people, but he did, he didn't pardon, he commuted their sentence. So, I mean, and the low unemployment numbers, of course, before COVID, that's a problem, but the very low unemployment numbers. And also, if you look at the fact that, like when Obama was in office, he had, movie stars and NBA stars and NFL stars coming to the White House. When you look at who Trump invited to the White House, and it's all of these these YouTubers guys, like all of these guys who are like, I can't believe I'm just a little nobody with like 200,000 followers on YouTube, and here I am going to the White House. Like that's amazing, right? So it's like the everyday schmoes, like I said, like David Harris Jr., like Terrence Williams, like Damani Felder. There's all of these different guys who are like, they're just like, hey, we're just doing this YouTube channel, and
I don't know. Let's just go Diamond and Silk, because those are the people.
Diamond and Silk as well. Yes, they were there. They actually spoke for a little bit as well.
And what about enterprise zones for Black areas?
Correct.
Yeah.
I forgot the enterprise
zones. He's one of the most successful at trying to bring business into Black areas. Yeah. Is it opportunity zones? I thought it was enterprise zones. But anyway, a tremendous amount of effort that he's put in to try to help Black businesses.
Correct.
A lot of that has been harmed by COVID, but hopefully as the whole country comes back, the Black areas will too. All right, so I'm sorry to interrupt, but go ahead.
Rick, did you have any more? A question.
I was just going to, we're going to get to the arguing in a couple minutes. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about Tulsa and your day, or a couple days?
Right.
Well, you're still in Tulsa, right?
I am still in Tulsa. Today was actually a lot of fun. I'll get to it in just 1 second. Let me just finish the rally part. I would say a lot of people are complaining that, oh, or at least I think the fake news media tried to portray like, oh, the turnout was so much less than it was expected, or they got fooled by those TikTokers, that supposedly reserved all the tickets. And you have to remember that not only is there COVID, and flights issue, because there's like one direct flight from LA to Tulsa, by the way, one, right? So, and our flight coming out on Friday was full, like 100% full, right?
With
So
Trump people, were everybody going to the rally?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think there's a lot of people, some people just going back to Tulsa, but maybe there were. I don't know. I didn't talk to everybody on the plane, but I do know that some people wanted to go who said they couldn't get a flight in from California. I also know that, again, well, what I mentioned before with the curfew, that scared some people away, and also because there were Antifa and BLM people who were physically, which we didn't even know before, but they were actually outside stopping people from getting to the metal detectors. So there were people who wanted to get in and couldn't. And so the
Well, I
overflow.
heard. No, wait, hold on. So maybe that's a point of arguing about that.
Okay.
I heard that there were not that many protesters. That it wasn't even 1,000. It might have been in the low hundreds.
I don't know the actual number, I'll be honest with you, but I do know that enough of them show up, and if enough of them show up, if they feel it's not safe for the crowd, they're not going to let. So they, like for the overflow crowd that they set up the big screens outside for, they would feel like, oh, I heard there was no overcrowd. That's true, there was no overflow crowd, but it's because it wasn't safe for them to be there, so they sent them home. So
Well, I heard also that there were multiple entrances, so that if you got blocked, that the protesters only managed to block one entrance for a while, and if
right.
you could go around to a different entrance.
Right. But again, like I said, I didn't even know when luckily we were at an entrance that didn't have any trouble. The thing is that inside the arena, yes, the upper deck was not completely full. There was it was kind of smattering kind of people or whatever. But if you look at all the bottom, and it's 360 all the way around, it was packed. So it was a good 15,000 people in there.
Well, let me ask you this. This is not about the speech or anything. Is Tulsa pretty?
Actually, what I've seen, it's not bad. It's actually quite nice.
Because like Lance likes to complain about California and LA, and you don't have to be Lance to want to maybe move elsewhere. And when you poke around the country looking at where you could buy a house for cheap, Oklahoma, especially the Panhandle, Tulsa's not in the Panhandle, but they have really affordable houses. Like you can get a nice house there for probably 120 grand, maybe less.
That's crazy. You know what? There's a lot of green. There's a lot of parks. The one thing we noticed, there was a lot of parks and a lot of green. And you know what? It's funny. As today we were coming back just like half an hour ago. It's actually kind of late here. It's already past midnight. But the fact that we only saw like literally, like I could count the number of homeless people I've seen. Literally, I could count them. Because if you were downtown LA right now, and I don't have to tell you that we're talking about blocks and blocks of just encampments and just horrific sites that you don't want to be near. And we were driving through, or even like we were looking, so when it was around 9 p.m. or so here, we asked, oh, where can we go find a place to eat? And they were like, well, it's Sunday night, but they're like, oh, there's a place that you can, about half of, maybe 3-4 blocks away. I was like, oh, okay, great. I said, it's definitely walkable. And I said, is it safe? He goes, oh yeah, it's definitely safe. There's no place here that's not safe. Like you don't feel unsafe walking in the middle of downtown, even though it's dark, and even though it's kind of deserted at this point, you don't feel like, oh my God, I'm gonna be killed,
Okay.
So I was actually surprised, to be honest with you. Like I didn't expect that. And actually, so today we tried to do a little bit of the touristy stuff, and so we went to a place called It's called the Gathering Place. It's like this free park with like all of these little like I don't know, things for kids to do and bigger kids to do, and it's really pretty, and it's really fun, and it's really interactive, and it's not just like one or two things. There's like 18 different things you can. If you're a kid, oh my God, I wanted to be a kid again. It was so much fun. there's a river walk, so they have the Arkansas River that's right there. So Riverside Drive is really pretty. They have nice parks and walkways, and they have a beautiful skate park that you cannot fill with sand because there's no sand nearby. It's a beautiful sand, and that's the other thing. So again, in restaurants, for instance, some places definitely do keep the every other table. The waiters wear face covering, but they don't necessarily request that you do. Again, if you're going to a restaurant, it doesn't make sense that you would. But it's really, I mean, not everything is open. There were some places that we wanted to go that were like, oh, due to COVID, we're now closed. Apparently, our hotel doesn't have maid service. Like, there's nobody's coming to fix your bed when you're not here, because for some reason that's dangerous. I'm not really sure what that is. I don't understand that, but we're not
Okay.
here, so you can make the bed. So
All right.
anyway,
So I think we're going to cut you loose. Thank you for the report.
awesome. It was my pleasure. Thank you guys for having me on again. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you very much, Maya, and thank you for going to the rally to support the president. We need enthusiastic soldiers out there, and I appreciate your effort.
He did tell us all. He said, "You guys are all warriors out there," and I think the really good definition that I've seen of that is like a warrior doesn't fight because he hates what's in front of him. A warrior fights because he loves what's behind him. And I think that's what we really are looking to protect what's left of, our free country. Because if the country turns into a CHOP or Chaz or whatever that happens in Seattle, we're done. It's over. And I think everybody's beginning to feel that. So, but thanks again.
Oh,
You
hold
guys.
on.
Question.
Hold on. Wait, I grew up in one of the most hippie-laden towns in America
Okay.
Boulder, Colorado. If there
Okay.
was ever a town, and we had riots during the Vietnam War. I was a little kid, and they shut down the main highway out of town, and there was a lot of. It went on for like 3 days, and
Okay.
um, the kind of things that Chaz deal, that stuff I don't believe is sustainable. Um, I think it's
Well, why is it even allowed to happen in the first place? I think that's the key. Why has it been allowed to happen in the first place? They didn't go out in the middle of the woods and take over some space. They took the middle of the city. That's not theirs to take. There's people who
yeah,
live there. There's businesses who try to operate there and they can't. And it's all been graffitied over. And I heard somebody got shot yesterday. I mean,
yeah. I don't know much about it. It's not something that I had enough of that. Like I guess growing up, so I should be more informed about it. But it doesn't. It's not that interesting to me. Um, um, so sorry. So that's my
no
fault for
worries.
not being informed. But
Okay,
Let me ask you a question, Maya.
sure.
I didn't get to hear the whole speech. What did he say about COVID?
Well, no, he said we had a very bad virus that came from China. He made a point of saying China. He did call it the Kung flu. So good luck with not getting the media to smear him on that. But
That's a good one. I'm going to call it the Kung flu too. That's funny.
I've heard that one before, but of course, the audience loved it and we all laughed about it. Um, I mean, he basically said, look, we had a problem. We dealt with it. He pointed out that he closed the borders from China early on before people knew that it was to be done. And he pointed out even that he closed the travel from Europe. So he just
But
pointed
what
out some
did
things that they have
but
done.
what did he say about it now? Did he say we're done with it and it's time to move on?
He said, however, carefully or not, we need to start reopening. And
he said,
I mean,
sorry.
go ahead.
Well, he said the one thing that got the most coverage in the stuff that I look at,
Mhm.
the one thing he said about the COVID that got the most coverage was that we don't want to do much. He said he's tried to hold down the amount of testing because if you test people, then you get higher numbers of people with it. And
Well,
then he said that he was making a joke later on.
he did, and it did sound like he was making a joke because, yeah, you're right. I actually forgot that part. He did say about testing, so we've done more testing than anyone, and of course, when you test, you're going to find more. And so then he said that they made that comment that you just said. And yes, I mean, everybody laughed. It was just that we were laughing. It's like, okay, let's hold off on the testing since we're finding so many cases. But at the same time, like I said, everybody in the arena was just like, wear a mask, don't wear a mask, it's entirely up to you. Even on the plane, there were people there's a really nice couple that was sitting next to me. They were originally from Oklahoma. They now live in Bakersfield, and the lady kept like taking off her mask. She's like, I can't breathe in this thing. This is crazy. I know my husband
Yeah,
wants
my
me
wife does
to
that,
put
which
it back on.
super bugs me because since I live with my wife, when she takes off her mask, she's taking off my mask too.
Well, I mean, again, I think we just recently, a week ago or something, heard that you don't really need it unless you are sick or if you're handling somebody who is sick, because otherwise you're not, because they're so porous, they're not really protecting anything or anyone. So I think it's entirely up to you. It's like if or you or your wife or whoever, do you guys want to wear it? Wear it. You should like leave everybody else alone because I'm not sick. So why am I wearing it? Why am I restricting my own airflow? That's just, it makes no sense.
All right.
Yeah.
I think we're going
Okay.
to.
I've Yes, absolutely. I've never been to a political rally before. Well, well, yeah, no, he definitely had people
Whoa,
laughing.
director. Well, direct. Hold
I
on,
know
like
he's
that.
directing. He's yeah, he's directing definitely. Yeah, you are
And
leaving the
it's like
room. How
three
dare
against
you?
one here now with you. So
No, no, no. But I mean, quite frankly, he is very charismatic as far as talk. Like I said, the hour and a half or an hour and 45 minutes that he spoke, like I said, the energy stayed out the same throughout. He didn't feel towards the end when he's getting tired. He wasn't beginning more like and oh or whatever. He stayed on it. He loves the audience, and I think he gets the energy from the audience back. So that would be my take, is that it was more, it was interesting to hear also the people around us, that some were like, oh my god, we love you, and then some people, he would say something and people would be like, okay, I think I agree, whatever. Well, yeah, I don't have to. I mean, you can see that for yourself. You saw when he did the virtual thing with the 20 people in the room or whatever that was. I mean, look, I mean, it's a given. I think
You
we made a
you got to
joke about.
repeat what you have to repeat what the director said because the audience can't hear that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was gonna say, contrasting uh, Trump with Joe Biden is like saying, it's raining in Tulsa, but the weather in California is fine. It has nothing to do with anything. It's not. It doesn't have any ramification on what the actual issue is, because when he made a joke about, well, the Biden being the puppet of the extreme left, and he actually pointed out that Biden himself is not at the extreme left, but he is now being used as the puppet of the extreme left because he doesn't actually have control. And he said something like, well, when he's not confusing his wife with his sister, then, and people are like, oh, how dare he make that comment? I'm like, well, that's actually on video from like 3 months ago. So yes, it happened. Maybe it was just an innocent mistake. But if they're gonna rip him 18 ways from Sunday for everything that when he was holding a cup of water because he didn't want to drip water on his
yeah, yeah.
tie or whatever. So it was a, again, he was trying to make the audience laugh. He knew it would. At one point, he actually said something like, "With everything that's going on, oh," and he just kind of like waved his arms because I'm just glad, because you're just lucky I'm your president, and everybody just like laughed so much because it was very like self-congratulatory and at the same time kind of true. Because if heaven forbid we had Hillary right now, Lord help us. So I mean, at least that's how
All
I
right.
feel.
All right. I'm not going to get into that argument, but
Okay, we can do that another time.
okay.
Well,
Thank you, Maya.
I know you guys want to. Thank you guys for having me on again. I'll talk to you guys soon.
All right. Have a safe trip
Okay.
back.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.
All
Okay.
right.
Oops. So let me just get one thing out of the way so we don't have to argue about it. So obviously, I watched the clips of Trump drinking water two-handed and going gingerly down the stairs or the ramp, and then I've watched clips of him walking around in the this week, and I no longer believe that what he did is proof of any kind of. I mean, not. It doesn't prove that he doesn't have dementia, but it's not a strong indicator that he's got a broken brain.
Well,
I
that's
think
healthy,
it's
and that's great.
so. I think it's stupid to like men's dress shoes have leather soles, which you know I don't think I have any shoes like that. It's a dumb thing to have. Shoes these days, you can get a nice looking dress shoe with some kind of rubber or synthetic rubber sole, and that's what you should wear because it's ridiculous to have shoes with shiny soles, unless talking about Louboutin shoes, those ones with the painted red soles for you only wear on the red carpet and stuff. But anyway, he was wearing the wrong shoes. He didn't want to. Yeah, so I'm not going to argue that.
Well, great. That's great. I listened to about an hour and a half of the speech, and my conclusion is that what he did would have been impossible for me to do. And I'm a fairly articulate man, and I'm much younger than him. And I just came away thinking that guy has whatever faculties he ever had, because no one could have talked that long and that fluidly and had mental any kind of mental deficiencies. It's not possible. I've never heard anybody speak like that and not be perfectly healthy mentally.
Yeah, I get it.
Go ahead.
I mean, you and I, we've only just started doing this, a few years ago, and we're still not great. Being able to speak, I guess, more or less extemporaneously for that long a time.
Yeah, it was great. Go ahead.
It's not nothing. At the same time, he's been doing that kind of stuff, going on for decades. So,
Yeah, but you wouldn't be able to do it if you were senile.
yeah, though there is a
It'd be
thing.
too hard.
There's a thing with the president. Some people, when you put them in the presidency, sometimes it gives them like a rhetorical flat tire, um, where he's, depends on his crowd. It depends on who's looking for what. Um, you know, G.W. Bush was said to be more eloquent before he was president than when he was president. And, you know, anyway.
All right. So, what did you have any other topics you wanted to discuss?
Yeah, let's go to. So, this was the biggest weekend for new cases of COVID since the end of April, and the second biggest weekend ever in the U.S. So, the number of cases is picking up. But the number of deaths, this was the lowest number of deaths, um, the lowest week for deaths since the very beginning, since the first or second week of the pandemic really taking off in the U.S. So that's a paradox, and I've read up on it, and um, there's a theory that that the Trumpy states, namely Texas, Georgia, and Florida, were throwing more dead people into the pneumonia hopper than into the COVID hopper. But that, I think, has largely been. There were some numbers that were amazing, but they turned out, I think, not to be true about how many pneumonia cases there were. They were crazy, like 4,800 in Florida compared to past years averaging 900. Those numbers turn out not to be true, that there's only a year-to-date difference. More. There are only 300 more pneumonia cases in Florida at this point of the year compared to like last year or the average of so not enough to account for, nobody's. If somebody's hiding COVID deaths under the pneumonia umbrella, it's not a huge number. Then there's a theory that that it's younger people who are, showing up positive on the tests, and they're more likely to have not die from it. And then there's the idea that more testing is uncovering more cases, which is somewhat true, but not like enough to explain everything. So there you go.
Right. Well, yeah, I have absolutely no disagreement with you. Um, it's of special interest to me, this particular subject, because I've been telling people now for several months that COVID would probably peter out, uh, and that the lockdown was ridiculous. And my proof was always look at the red states, Texas, Florida. If if the lockdown is really necessary, then when the states stop having a lockdown, there should be piles of bodies 10 stories high in all those states. But it turns out the opposite is true.
Well, hold on.
Now,
So
hang on, wait,
okay, all
don't
right. You're
interrupt
right.
me.
You're right.
Don't
Okay.
interrupt me. Okay. Now, as a result, now because I've been saying that, I got very excited when I heard that there were these skyrocketing numbers of cases in Texas and Florida. So I read the same articles you did. So I've been monitoring it every single day. And I am happy to report the same result that you have, Rick. And that is that even though the numbers are really skyrocketing in Texas and Florida,
Number of
the
new
number of
cases.
cases, yeah, the number of deaths have pretty much continued to decline. It's never an absolutely perfect decline. It always goes down, comes up a little bit, but overall it's in a downward slope. Now, I I would say the same as you that those reasons you gave for the discrepancy make sense. I also think that my original statement 3 months ago that probably a lot more people have this than we know, and therefore the death rate is actually much lower. That's what I'm going with as an explanation. In other words, I'm saying that I believe that they're testing more, they're finding more cases, and they're finding out that, well, gee, if there are that many more cases and not that many people are dying, then really COVID is not that much worse than the regular flu in terms of its death rate. So the argument 3 months ago was if you get COVID, you have a 5% chance of dying. If you get the flu, you've got a 1 in 1,000 chance of dying. And I'm saying that all along it's been closer to 1 in 1,000, and that I believe is bearing out.
Well, the more
So,
recent statistics are saying between 0.5% and 1%. The last article I read, which is between 5 and 10 times the flu death rate. Um,
well, either way, I know a lot of people that would take 1 in 200 chances of dying over a 10% chance of dying, which is what a lot
sure.
of people thought in the beginning. Um,
Well, I was
so,
talking to Carol about this and saying it's a tricky virus. You know, when it first started kicking in, people were talking. The experts were saying that a successful virus isn't super killy because you don't. If a virus that kills everybody within 2 minutes, it doesn't get transmitted because somebody dies. The victims die before they can pass it on. This virus is tricky because if it's got a mortality rate of between 0.5% and 1%, that's low enough that it doesn't kill enough people to freak people out. It just kills people kind of steadily, and to the point where a lot of people are like, is it really worth it to shut everything down for this level of dying?
well, I want to jump in there. I hope you're finished
Yeah.
because there are two other factors that I've also been saying all along, and I want to tie them together with a little new information, and that is that it turns out that maybe 40% of all the deaths were in nursing homes. Um, you can argue the exact numbers, but if you take out all the deaths that were in nursing homes, uh, it's it becomes more like a bad flu season. And that's the first thing. And the second thing, don't interrupt me, is that Colorado is the first state to officially announce that their numbers were 25% inflated. And the reason, they say, is that they counted way too many people that died of other causes that just happened to have COVID. So you get the scenario. Somebody's shot, and when they do an autopsy, they find, oh, they've got COVID, but they died from the gunshot wound. Now, that has happened. And so they were listed as COVID. So my argument is that if you reduce all the rest home deaths, and then you reduce another 20% from all the states where they overcounted, I think what we end up with, Rick, is a bad flu season. And I think that after the first month, late April, April 30th should have been the last day of the lockdown. At that point, we knew enough about it. We knew that our hospitals were not going to be overrun, and we should have just unlocked the economy. So, right, go ahead.
All right. So, I don't buy that the numbers have been 25% inflated across the whole country, because if you look at excess mortality, they, which is the number of people who've died at this point in the year compared to the number of people who've died in America on average for the past 10 years, that number is right around 150,000 compared to the official.
But that could be explained by Democrat governors putting COVID patients into rest homes. That took out they probably killed 30,000 people that way.
Yeah, but so that's still, those people still die. Those people still died. Regardless of who's at fault, those people, and even if they're in nursing homes, those people are dead. So anyway, the number of official COVID deaths, which is right now at 122,000, compared to the excess mortality numbers, which are right around 150,000, suggests that the numbers haven't been. Maybe Colorado's an exception. I haven't read about it, but the numbers haven't been wildly overreported. But
even so, given your excess mortality statistic, my argument is simply that it was only the nursing homes and the elderly that should have been locked down.
We didn't know that at first.
I knew it. I knew it within the first few weeks.
Yeah, but you're not the boss of any. You're not the boss of anybody. You're a guy in an artist studio.
Right, but if a guy in an artist studio knew it, you can bet that they knew it at the top. And
because look at who's at the top. Like and depending on what you call the top, you got a bunch of people who have done a lot of. The CDC fucked up 8 ways till Sunday. Trump, I would argue, fucked up a lot of what. Pence is not a scientist.
No, but I'm not concerned about them because after April the 30th, the official lockdown was over. They said it was voluntary, and it was the Democrat governors that have continued the lockdown.
All right. So anyway, there's one thing we haven't brought up, which is the two things. I'm going to bring up two things. One is the wait and see, because the curve of new cases, which peaked and then has gone down, and then not to zero, but it went from 30,000 a day down to around 20, and now we had another couple 30,000 days in the past 3 days over this weekend.
You're talking about the whole world?
No. The whole world. The whole world is setting records for numbers. The world is looking shitty. The world just is breaking records, all-time records for a number of new cases. Okay. The number of deaths is also, I think, starting to break records. Because you've got hellhole countries, or at least countries that have bad different forms of infrastructure, like I think Chile, right? Chile is fucked up right now, and Mexico has problems, Russia has problems, Brazil has problems. Um, a bunch of trouble countries are reaching the point where their numbers are really adding to the world total. Um, but anyway, the bad numbers for new cases in the U.S. have really started creeping up only in the past week or so. So when you're looking
Well,
at deaths, um, there's a wait and see there, because generally once you get the COVID, it takes what, 3 weeks for it to kill you on average, or I don't know, something like that.
I think
3, 4.
within 10 days, if you're going to die,
All right. Well, anyway, there's
yeah.
still a bit of wait and see.
Yeah, but
The other
I
thing
don't.
is,
Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to mostly agree with you. I don't know about when we should have started doing it, but it's become clear, with some caveats, that COVID's a lot more dangerous to um, older people than to young people. Though that's not something we necessarily knew right away, though you say you do. But anyway, there's a counter argument to that, which is that with Spanish flu, it took a few years to discover all the lasting damage it didn't do to some of the people it didn't kill. There's that uh, there's that thing with it simulates Parkinson's, or maybe it is early onset Parkinson's. Remember that Robin Williams movie and De Niro from 30 years ago about the people who basically fell asleep after catching it forever until a new drug woke them up like 50 years later, which was a weird effect of the flu. It shut down people's brains a la Parkinson's. The significant, I don't know how many people, but enough that, anyway. And they're talking about reduced capacity in some people who have this. So it's early enough in our knowledge of the disease that just dying within 3 weeks isn't necessarily the only thing it does. But discounting that argument for the time being, it's clear that old people should be much more cautious than young people. And young people, that there can be a lot of opening up, that people with more risk factors should be more careful. People without added risk factors should be courteous, within reason. Um, it's not unreasonable, I think. Like Maya said, that everybody entering the arena to watch the Trump thing was issued a mask, to use a mask if they thought it was appropriate, and also if the people around them thought it was appropriate. So I believe we're going to develop a whole kind of new etiquette where, um, people at risk will mask up if they're in places where there's, in public, a lot of places in public. Um, some people are pretty belligerent about, or just aggressive about, telling people to mask up if around them, if they feel they don't want to be put at risk. And I think I don't think this thing is going to go away for about another year at least. I don't think that we're going to get a vaccine, before, say, March of next year at the earliest, and that's probably like crazy early. So I think we'll develop a whole new set of manners, the way we had to with cell phones. And the manners will involve, for the most part, masks and, to some extent, social distancing and crowd size and all that stuff. And it will involve older people and people at risk protecting themselves and asking other people to protect them when appropriate. Does that sound reasonable?
Well, I mean, this is in keeping with the COVID hysteria. Um, I I maintain, and I think my predictions are bearing out, that the COVID will actually, the Wuhan will either lose strength or the sun, the heat, will be inhospitable to it. And I
I
think
can argue
by,
against that.
well, you can argue, but my, I know that we are not smarter than this virus. And I also know that every month since late April, the numbers are going down of death. And my point is, I predicted 3 months ago that the summer was going to, it was going to have a season like any other illness of this kind, and that eventually it would sort of lose strength or, what's the word for change? It would metamorphosize, or the summer heat would get to it. Don't interrupt me. And so I think that by the end of August, COVID will be, I hope, I mean, I'm not God, I can't prove it, but I believe that by the end of the summer, it will be a bad memory, and that there are a lot of people that are just traumatized by this psychologically, and they, like yourself, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but they really see this as the way you describe it. And I think it'll be like a flu season. By the end of August, it'll be gone. And that come fall and winter, it'll basically, we hopefully will be back to normal. Don't interrupt me. And I think that, one, if there is a scare, that's all it'll be. It'll be the Democrats trying to somehow use it to affect the election, because they have complete control of the media. And I know that they're trying to frighten people. And so if I start seeing articles in October that it's coming back, I know it's the Democrats up to their old tricks. And I
Hold on.
also
What
think,
about statistics?
wait. And
All right, all right, all right, all right.
my last statement. I also think that normal people, I've been out with normal people all week. I've been going to places, talking with people. Everybody is sick of this shit. And people are doing everything they can to take off their masks and lead normal experiences. They're shaking hands, they're saying hi to each other, people are speaking with strangers, and I know that there is a natural urge for people to get back to normal. So, no, Rick, I think, I hope that the opposite will occur. Now you
Yeah,
can
well, me
say,
too. But like,